YouTube, what is good? So if you've been keeping up with the channel, you know that I've been going to a lot of small towns here in Georgia, and I've been working on this Southern themed book project that will probably take me years to complete. But when I go to these locations, sometimes I find myself in a situation where the location's boring. I'll be honest. But the other day, this idea just hit me right in the face, like Francis Ngannou versus Alistair Overeem, and I thought, what if I brought some artificial lights out with me? So if I find myself in this situation where the location is boring, I can still do something. I can still make something interesting. So did a little bit of research online and realized that Aperture had just released their new Nova light, which is basically this light panel that does colored lights. It does a variety of white to tungsten lighting. It's really dope. So I thought, hey, I'm gonna buy one of these. I can bring it out with me and it can be like my contingency plan when I'm doing photo shoots. Well, I tweeted at Aperture and they were cool enough to send me this right here, their MC4 light kit. This thing is fire. Check this out. You open it up, you got 4 lights in there, this case charges it, and you take these out, you turn them on, and you can like set them to a bunch of different color settings. You can go blue all the way to purple. You can also do your standard white to tungsten temperatures right here, so you can go warm, you can go cool. This is actually going to work a lot better than the original idea I had of getting the Nova light. So shout out to Aperture, they're not the sponsor on this video. They actually told me I didn't even have to talk about it if I didn't want to, but obviously I tweeted at them. I wanted this, so I'm going to use it. So today's video is going to be kind of a hybrid. We're going to talk about what I did with these lights to spice up a location that me and my buddy Chris went to, and then I'm also going to give y'all probably 5 other little tips that I use to make boring locations a little bit more interesting. So if you enjoyed the video, do me a huge solid, hit that thumbs up button. It helps out the channel a bunch. But what did we do with these lights? Me and my buddy Chris went out to this town called Conyers, Georgia, and we had the initial idea of using these lights basically to create a cast on a portrait. So the idea was, as the sun is setting blue, we'll be able to turn these lights to red and then shine them on Chris or myself and make this kind of cool artistic looking portrait that almost mimicked the look of like a tail light or something like that. We also experimented a little bit with doing some like shutter drag. I had this concept of using this light as basically a fake lens flare because this location didn't have a lot of layers. So I got to thinking, all right, what if we put this in front of the bottom of the lens and kind of positioned it in the perfect spot? And sure enough, it did exactly what I thought it would do. Made this portrait right here where we mimic basically a lens flare at the bottom. It creates another layer of interest and it really complements against this blue sky essentially perfectly. And I think it really elevates this photo to something that's more interesting than it would be without it. And we did the same thing with this photo, this garage. The garage had a real like Terminator feel to me. So what I did with this is once again put it next to my lens and created this fake flare. It was more of kind of like a light leak that you'd see on film. And then from there, we tried a few other things where we put multiple lights on the ground and created these red shadows. It completely transformed the location. It made it into this dark, eerie, just I don't even know how to describe it. It did exactly what I thought it was going to do. It took a location that was nothing and turned it into something. Now here's the thing, you don't have to go out and necessarily buy some expensive lights like this. You could do something as simple as incorporating your headlights or incorporating the tail lights of your car. So maybe you have your buddy get in a car, hit the brakes and shine that red cast on the portrait or the model you're using. This would actually probably come off a little bit more authentic and realistic. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about today, is this concept that I'm going to now experiment with a lot more of adding artificial light into your small town street photography, or just into a boring, less than ideal location. It can really give your photos another layer of depth and transform a scene into something kind of like out of a movie. Now there's a few more things I want to talk about today, but real quick before we get into those, I want to thank the sponsor today, Squarespace. Squarespace is hands down the easiest place to build a website. Do you have a side hustle, you have a hobby, you have anything that you're creating that you just want to share with the world? Do you know how to move a file from one folder on your computer to another folder? Then you know how to design a website with Squarespace. Their templates are so easy to use. All you got to do is fill in the blanks and drag and drop media and bang, you are done. It took me one afternoon to build my website, evanramp.com, which is a huge part of my photography business. I actually have a video on this channel all about how I built that website. I'll go ahead and link it in the description down below. But while you're down below in that description, go ahead and click on the link. You can start your free trial and start building a website with Squarespace today. And if you go to squarespace.com/EvanRamp, you can also start a free trial and you can use code EvanRamp to get 10% off your first purchase. So that's squarespace.com/EvanRamp to start a free trial, and you can use code EvanRamp to get 10% off your first purchase when you are ready to sign up and find finalize your website. Thank you, Squarespace, for sponsoring today's video. Now, another thing you can do in a boring location is something that I like to call universal symbols. Basically, if you're in a location that might not seem interesting to someone outside of the location or someone who doesn't know the area that you're in, look for symbols that are easier for them to understand. This is one reason why car photos are so popular. I mean, I have one right there. Cars are universal. If you can find a cool old school car in a cool composition, it tells a story to so many people regardless of where you are. You could be in the middle of nowhere, find the most amazing old school car with the most amazing composition, make a photo of it, and it could resonate with an entire population of people around the entire world. And it's going to vary from location to location, but just think to yourself, okay, what are the items or the things that can be found in this boring or uninteresting location that could still resonate with a lot of people, and how can I capture it in a unique, cool way? Another thing you can do is remove context. Now, in a vlog that was on my Patreon, I went to this place called Dawsonville, Georgia. It was a pretty cool location, but near there was this car Hall of Fame thing. Not exactly sure what it was called, and it was next to a grocery store. Like literally, it shared a parking lot. This museum had this grocery store, but there were these cool NASCAR old cars there, and I thought to myself, these would make interesting photos by themselves, but not as interesting if you knew that they were in a parking lot that was shared with a grocery store. So what I did, I removed all that context and just made photos of the things that I thought were interesting in that particular place. So if you viewed them online or you viewed them as a print, whatever it is, people have no idea that this is just some random car museum thing in a grocery store parking lot. They just see, yo, these are really cool, old school looking stock cars, essentially. But on the Patreon, I went out to another location in Georgia called Braselton, Georgia. And this location was weird because it was so much smaller than I anticipated. I'd never been there, had no idea what to expect, but I made something interesting utilizing the shadows on this wall of this old building. And shadows is something you can incorporate into basically any scenario that you're in. Maybe you find yourself in a composition where the lighting is a little bit harsh, it's facing the wrong way. You can figure out a way to work your own shadow into the photo. I've done this time and time again. I've seen other photographers do it as well. It's not something you want to do all the time, but you can use your own shadow as a piece of a photo. Or maybe you have someone out with you, you can say, hey, go stand in this exact spot right here so your shadow casts onto a wall this way. Pretty simple. Another thing you can do is utilize reflections. I've done this a million times. It's actually one of my favorite things that I've been doing recently, and reflections do the exact same thing. They add a bunch of layers into your photos and they create kind of a chaotic effect that can be controlled with a polarizer. Definitely make sure you bring one so you can control where the reflections in the photo end up. Reflection photos are great for making a location or a place seem interesting, even though I have no idea or the viewer has no idea where that particular place is. So this is definitely more of an artistic one, and it's one that's kind of hard to explain, so I definitely recommend just going out and trying it for yourself. So that's everything I wanted to talk about today. Shout out to Aperture for sending me these lights. Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Love y'all. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe.